Hello felting friends, welcome back to this week's video. This week we're continuing the Enchanted Forest theme and we have the picture for May, which is a wise and magical mouse. So this week we've walked over the little cobble bridge, followed the stream along, and as the evening was drawing in and night was falling, we came across a little mouse sitting on a mossy stone. So this is where we are this week and we're going to have a go at felting him. I just want to briefly say that the video does speed quite quickly because I had a lot to fit in this half an hour video length that I like to do for you. So either you can, if you need to, you can slow it down by somewhere in the YouTube window box. There's something that says settings and you can slow the video down there if you need to. If not, if you have a problem and you don't understand what I've done, I've saved the video footage. I can take some of that footage and just put it up as an independent little video and show you. I won't necessarily talk through it, but I will just put the part up that you might need help with. So maybe it's on the mouse's head or the cloak, anything like that. I can pop the video up of that segment in real time if you need it to. So just let me know in the description, not in the description, in the comments box below if that's any use to you. This week's picture. So the picture, as always, is available in the description box below. Just go and click on the link, it'll take you to it. And all I'm doing now is I've picked just a darkish sky blue and I've put that over the top. Now that part I'm showing you here is the same sky blue that I've got over the top, that dark one, mixed with a bit of light blue. And I'm just doing it to blend it in because we're going to use that colour where it blends into the night sky as some of the mist on the water as well. But you'll see I'll use that again in a minute. So just cover it across down to where the mouse is and down to where the mountain is. And now I've taken some dark blue and some of the light blue and a little bit of brown. And if you watch, it does go quite quickly, I'm sorry. If you watch, I'm just start to put it in the background there and it's going to be a distant hill. And if you've seen me do these mountains before, it doesn't have to be all down the picture at the moment. It's just blocked in the background. Can you vaguely see it? And that's all you need to do, and leave some blue below it because that's going to be some of the mist. And then I'm just carrying it across to the other side of the mouse's ear. And it doesn't matter if you go over the mouse, as always I like to go over it a bit so I don't end up with the lines between the background and the front where you can see the green coming through. And if you've got the template, do what I do, and that's cut the template out and draw around that in a minute. So here I've taken some of the dark blue and some black. I used quite a lot of black in this week. And I'm just going up and down the picture and putting in some distant sort of hillsides. And that's just some grey as well. So if you've got grey, dark blue, all those, mix them all together. We just want a distant set of mountains. You'll see, not necessarily mountains, cliffs, you'll see how they blend into the background in a minute, because obviously it's not the main focal point of the picture, so we don't want it to stand out too much. But say greys, dark blues, mix them all together, bits of black, it's fine. And because I've got tops or roving here, I'm using that to actually aim it down the picture. But if you've got I'm pulling it down like it's running down the picture. That's what I'm trying to say. But you can do this just as well with carded. And all I'm doing is blending it into different blues and greys because I want some variety in the background. I don't want it all flat. And this is the sky, the colour that I told you to mix the sky colour with the light blue. And I'm just separating off each set of like hills or mountains or whatever with this misty blue in between. And that'll give, it looks like the atmosphere in between, the kind of misty look. So we're just putting some of that down and spread it in. This is a slightly further away picture than I would normally do, but for some reason it was very blurry, so I had to take it from a different camera. and put it on so it's a little bit further away. Sorry about that. But you can basically see that there's no detail in this bit that you need to worry about. It's just layering up the darks on the lighter bits on the misty blue. And we're just coming forward, and I'm using that same dark colour, and I'm just marking in nearer rocks. And if you look, you can see the light blue between the two things, and that sets off the distance for you. Now this is got extra dark blue in because this is the little lake, so I want it darker because it'll have the shadow of the cliffy thing behind as well. So I'm just filling that in with some darker bits and some light colours going over it. And this is the frame that I keep every week or every time I do a picture to roughly give me a guide of what will be in or out of the frame should I decide to use one. I actually move this whole picture, the frame over, so you get more of the waterfall in the end. But that's all I'm putting here is a bit of a waterfall in the distance. I will take the frame off in a moment. And this is just some white or some light blue, making the water up. Because I actually liked the little waterfall and I decided I wanted more of it in the picture. So when I do trim this up, I will make sure I keep that in. So we're just bringing that down now just to meet the water at the bottom and spreading it out a bit. I did also, actually it doesn't really show, I don't really need to tell you much about it, but on the hills behind the waterfall I did use some black lines to mark out some different rocks. So again, just this is just some green now, dark green, and I'm filling in around where the big rock that he's sitting on. So if you know the colours, if you've watched my colour video, this is the moss green and that I use. And I'm just filling in round the rock, and then on this little cliffy bit here is just dark grey and black. So I've got the darker grey black bits at the bottom, and then I'm highlighting it with some lighter grey, which you'll have used on the back of the other rocks as well in the distance. Now you can see I trimmed the picture up a bit so I've got more of the waterfall in it. Now here I'm just putting in, I've got a mushy mixture of blacks and greys all mixed together, and I'm just building up the rock that he's sitting on now. As you can see I've just gone round and it's different colour greys, it doesn't matter. And then I'm filling in the rest of it with that mossy green that I have. And I'm going to go right round the rock with that. And here is some lighter grey that we've used in other places on the picture, and I'm just putting some of that at the top of the rock so that it's lighter at the top and gets darker as it goes down the sides, and then we'll have some black in a minute that goes underneath for the shadow. There we go, look. And we'll just follow that round. I don't normally use black as outlines in anything, but I did use it quite a lot in this picture. So we're now just putting a little bit of the moss, because we need to make it comfortable for the mouse. So he's going to have some moss on top of the rock to sit on. And when you put this on, make it curved and bend it as if it's going down the side of the rock, because that will help to give that illusion for you. And that's just a little bit lighter. Now that's the template that you can download if you want to, and I use it to cut out all sorts of bits. So here I've cut out obviously his head without his ears, and I'm going around that in whatever colour that you'd like for your mouse. I'm just going around it in a mousy colour, just so I've got the outline, and then I can fill all that in with whatever colour that you choose to have. And to start with, I've just filled it in all one colour, and then I will go back in and start adding the shadows and things. So this is the same colour, and now I've added a little bit of dark brown, and obviously now I've just got some black for the eyes. It's very handy when you can do this, because you get them the right size and in the right place. So if you look on the template, you'll see he's got a little markings where his little nose area is, his little cheeks and nose area. There you go, you can see it there. And all we're doing is going to put some shadows in, and we're going to start to make it some light bits and some dark bits so that we can actually see the shape of that. And that's just some dark pink going in for his little mouth. And now I'm cutting out his nose, so I get that in the right place as well. Make sure you line up his eyes properly with that, otherwise you'll have a skew-whiff nose. So I've done that in quite a pink colour. And then, if you can, use some thin black and outline his little mouth, the inside of his mouth, so you're outlining his tongue basically. If you have real trouble doing this, you can use a very, very fine Sharpie or something like that, if you can't get your wool fine enough for that. So I'm sort of working from the back forward and the top of the mouse down to his cloak. And it's really a case of just putting some shadows and some light bits in. So I've used some very light beige or even white you can use to go round the side of his head that's on the left hand side and round his muzzle. And here I'm shadowing in that side. And this is just some darker brown mixed in with that colour that we put down as the base colour for the mouse. And as you can see, I use my needle to like mix things around a bit, so as I move it, it pulls up the fur from underneath, and you can mix the colours in a bit. So we're doing the same thing here, just pin the ears on and then just go around the ears in the wool, and then we'll fill them in. Take a note of the shape that I've drawn on the ear so that you do this bit that comes down the side. Can you see the bit I'm doing here that's filling it in? You want those two bits. Don't forget those. It's not just a circle and then pink. You're going to have that little bit that comes onto both sides of the ear. And then I've filled it. I happen to have some wool that's like skin colour, flesh colour, and so that's what I've used here. But you could use the pink if you wanted to, or you could use a light creamy colour. I just didn't really want to use the same colour as his nose. And you can, if you look here, you can see where I've done the white outline round his little nose and mouth, and then I'm filling in with some darker bits. And really my aim here is just to get some shape onto the face, so it looks like his little nose area, his muzzle bit, is coming forward. And I wanted a little bit lighter at the top between his ears, which is what I've done here. But you can see what I mean in a second. I will move it around with my needle. But do be careful if you haven't done this before, because you can snap your needles really easily. I'm still trying to get some shape and some shadow in there at the moment. And again, here I'm using my needle just to spread the wool out and mix them together. Now on this bit I took some of the pink and some of the from his nose and a bit of the pink that I used in his mouth, and I mixed them together, and I'm just putting that on the front of his nose just to give a bit of shape to that. Again in the ear, that's a little bit of pink. You don't see that too much, but it's a little bit of pink, and then we're going to go over it with that flesh colour. And I will mix some of the flesh colour with a medium brown, and this is what I'm putting on here around the ear. So I'm coming in a little bit. I'm hoping you can see what I'm doing. So I have a sort of small border around the ear from the outside. I hope you can see, if you look on the right hand ear, you can see that border. And now I'm just filling in some shape in the ear so it looks like it's got some folds around where the ear is. But the object of the exercise on this part with the ear was to, again, to make it not look flat. So this is all I'm doing really, is just, I've got some lighter bit in the very centre, if you can see where the light would come through it, and the other bits I've darkened it around the outside a bit, but just slightly, don't do it too heavy. So this is a dark brown, and I'm just going around the outside of his ears with the dark brown, so I've got an outline. Quite a lot of this mouse actually is outlined either in the dark brown or black. See, now I've taken it up the side, I'll show you again in a second. We take it up the side here, and then we're going to take that dark colour down round the little flap that folds in. So hopefully I show you. So we get to there, and then we're going to bring it down. Can you see there? And all I'm adding here is a little bit of darkness, so I've got a little bit of shadow. And again, that'll get mixed in with the lighter coloured fur in a minute. I shall pull it around a bit. So on this ear, I'm actually doing that with some light colour on the backs of the ears, and then I'm going round this part again with the dark brown. So the tops of his ears have got a little bit of lighter colour on. Can you see where it's just a little touch of the same colour I put round his nose? Now I've got a red cloak, but you can have any colour you like. You just have to bear in mind that you need to be able to make lighter parts and darker parts from that colour, so that you can have shadows and highlights. And what I'm doing here is I'm trying to darken that down for the shadow of his chin, and so that pushes his little face forward a bit more. Again, I'm just mixing the furs together. And what I've done for most of the shadows on this cloak, because I've got a red one, is I've mixed the red with the black. So anything that needs some shadow, I've gone with the red and black mix. But where it gets really, really dark, I've gone straight in for the black. But I'll try and tell you when that is. And I thought we'd have some purple trim on his cloak. I'm doing all these bits before I put his arms and that in, because obviously you don't want to have to be felting round his arms. That's black because it gets really dark. So if you know me from my other felting, you'll know I very rarely ever use black. And this again is black, but you could use the dark red if you wanted to. I just really want parts of it to stand out, and that will go down into sort of a triangle-y gap. Can you see? Part, sorry, not gap. Because that's going to be the shadow. But you'll see what I mean by that in a minute. Now, when it comes to the front of his cloak, you'll see me put quite a lot of dark in, and that's because he's going to be holding a book, and that book would block out all the light that would be shining onto his cloak. So that's why it just looks like I put a large random patch of very dark. This is the black mixed with the red again, as you can see, but it's a big, big patch of dark. And that's where his cloak folds over his arm. He's kind of put his arm through sleevey areas, like slit parts of his cloak. And so we've got to make sure it all drapes like we want it to in a minute. I do change this a little bit in a minute because the book ends up covering that over. My best suggestion for things like fabric is, and learning how the folds, is the best way to learn how fabric folds and flows is to observe it, as silly as it sounds. When I first started painting and drawing years and years ago, I would drape fabric on things and just look at it and see what made the folds and why different fabric draped in different ways. And I would sketch it all out. I mean, I don't expect you to particularly want to go sketching fabric, but it's worth it if you're not sure. Just drape some fabric over something and actually really look at the way it flows and moves and bends, and where the shadows are, and how you know it's folding. As silly as it sounds, because how you learn to see. No, what am I trying to say? I will sometimes look at something and I will think, how do I know that that's there? Or how do I know that that is that shape? And it sounds daft, but seriously, if you just look at any object in your house and go, how do I know that's that shape? What makes it look like it's flat or round or whatever? And really look at it. And I will do that for even things like trees. I'll look at a tree and I think, how do I know that that trunk is round? You know, how do I know that that glass is see-through? And it's only by observing, really, really observing something, that you start to be able to get a grasp on how to create things. And it's really worth doing, even just as a, you know, if someone's driving you somewhere and you're in the car, have a look at something outside and think, how do I know that's that? What makes that look that shape? Right, that's the lesson for today. Anyway, so all I'm doing here is I'm thinking about where some of the light might be, some of the shadow might be, and I'm using some lighter red for some of it. That very light colour that you can see on his collar, I've used some light red with a little bit of orange because I wanted it to, we haven't got a lantern in yet, but I wanted it to reflect some of the light from the lantern. But for most of the highlights in this, I will use pink mixed with the red. And for the low lights, it will be black mixed with the red. And sometimes it'll be more more black than red. So I've just got some white for the book of the pages, and here I'm just filling in just some brown. Just honestly, it's so dark under there. Just as long as you've got the top part that looks like a book, it'll disappear into his cloak. I'm going to darken some of that down, so you really won't see where the bottom end of the book is much anyway. And then I'm just catching a little bit of orange, and I will go back with a little bit of yellow as well on the edge of the book cover. So now I'm into some more of that flesh pink that I put in his ears, and I'm just making up a little hand to be holding the book here. And because I want to make sure I've got some fingers that actually look like fingers, I did roll some of that wool out into long little bits and felt them down individually, like long little sausages, and felt it down individually. I hope I'm not talking too much. There's just so much to try and tell you this week. And I do the same thing with his little toes on his feet. I roll up some flesh colour and I lay each bit out individually so I get a toe shape. I may go back and change these little toes because I just wanted his toes showing, not his foot. But it does look a little bit weird, so I may go and build that side up just a little bit more. And I don't know why you can't quite see it, but this is just a branch. I just wanted a branch. So that's where I pulled that sleeve up, and I'm just putting some purple in. I'm blocking the whole thing in so you can't see his arm. And you just see his little hand underneath. Now this is just about putting some light colours where you want to, and some dark bits for the shadowy in the folds. Where the main part of the fold is, you want to catch it with some highlight colour, and obviously where it disappears into a deep fold, that's where you want to put the shadow in. Now I've lightened up, what I'm doing this side is I'm lightening up the dark side of his cloak with some light blue wool, and on the other side where it was brighter, where I'm working now, I put in some darker wool so that the light part of his cloak would stand out more. That's basically how that was working. So I'm really just working on the folds of the cloak now. So this is lighter red that I'm putting on, sort of a brighter red. And then I will put in the darker parts into the fold. There you go, you see. Now that's black and red mixed together, and then at the top of that little fold I put straight black in, just at the top. That's where the crease would be deepest. If you struggle with this, if you have a look through the internet, see if you can find a picture of anything that's sitting with draped fabric or a cloak on it, anything like that, that's roughly sitting how you want your cloak to fall, and just copy that, just follow the lights and the darks on that. And I'm just putting a bit of shadow around his foot. Again, I think that's black. But as I said at the beginning, if you're struggling with this, if you're having a go and you're struggling with it, just tell me in the comments and I will put the video up for that part of me actually doing it in real time. I'll hang on to the video for a month. I can't keep it too long because it just clogs the computer up, but I'm happy to hang on to it for a little bit, and then if you need help then I can put that on. What I'll do is I'll hang on to it till I do the June one for this series, and then I'll get rid of it then. So you've got till then if you need me to put it up for you. So this is just some yellow. I just wanted to catch the top of the book, just make the top stand out. See how much I've darkened it down underneath? Now I know I'm going to put a lantern in here, so I wanted some very bright green, just not all over, just where the light would catch onto it. If I hadn't put that on the rock, it would have not stood out enough. It would have looked too blended into the background, and we need that rock that he's sitting on to be to really stand out, is what I'm trying to say. So we're nearly at the end now. We've got to just lighten up the branches a bit. This is the same yellow that I used on the top of the book, and I've taken that same yellow because I thought I'll add a little touch to his cloak. So we have a couple of thin little strands going down the cloak there. If you wanted to, you could get some little beads and actually embroider things, some beads onto his collar and things to make it really stand out. But do bear in mind, if you do that, that you may not be able to fit it in a frame because of, with the glass on. So the lantern's just a blob of yellow, and I'm going round it with some black, and I've gone up the middle so that it actually looks like a lantern. And now we're just popping in some little fireflies. And I hope you enjoyed that, and here's a look at all the ones we've got so far. I think the series is coming along quite nicely. So if you've enjoyed it today, please don't forget to give me a like and subscribe if you'd like to see more. I hope you've enjoyed this week's video. I'm not sure what the June one will be yet. It has yet to come to me. And I will see you next week. And thank you very much for watching. Bye for now.